The Cole guys, I'm George.
And I'm David.
Today we're joined by Corwyn Melette. He's all over the place, number one. He doesn't really need an introduction. Part of EXIT Low Country down here, also now part of EXIT Realty New Horizons. We're super excited to have him, but you should already know who he is. He's the man with the scream from the Mercedes, so let's not forget that.
Yeah, we're in Charleston today, coming down for a little bit of business meeting, so we're mixing a little bit of podcasting with business planning going on. No Mercedes today.
Yeah, no. Shout out though to Dick Dwyer. Look, That is the businessman. That Mercedes was hot.
This episode is brought to you by Dick Dyer Mercedes-Benz, the first Mercedes-Benz in South Carolina.
A roadmap that is specific. We're not Atlas.
Yeah.
We're not making road maps. We're not Google Maps. What's the other one that makes maps? We're not them. Who is it? Waze. Yeah. We're not them. We can't tell you every particular thing, identify every hazard along the way. Yeah. But what we can do is give you such a broad overlay that you understand the different ways to get to where you're trying to go to. Yeah. The different ways to get in the ocean. You can jump off this cliff. You can walk along the beach. You can frolic into the ocean. There's different ways for you to get into the ocean. So that's really what that conversation is about with the consumer. Yeah. There's so many different ways for you to get into real estate or any venture other than having to take the leap.
Yeah, but real estate and an agent, I think what an agent needs to hear out of what you just said is there's so many different ways, but the one thing that you hammered in on was consistent. If there is not consistent, then nothing comes of it. Mm-hmm. It's only with that consistent. And I think that's what so many agents lack coming in is kind of having a consistent plan, number one, for their day and themselves, and just doing whatever comes of it.
But
I just need the consistency.
And to add on to your point, it has to be for more than one day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or else it's not consistent. It's a day.
It's a day, and then it's a week, and then it's a month, and then it's a quarter of a year, and then it's a half a year, and so that you don't lose sight of the bigger vision, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. Because you can lose sight of the bigger vision, busting through the weeds of the day-to-day stuff that you got to do to make it happen.
So one of the biggest things, and I know you've seen this, Lord. Sometimes you see people come from another industry or job or something, quote unquote a 9 to 5, 8 to 5, whichever one it is, their hour lunch or what have you. And when they start in real estate, they go from working 8 to 5 to working 10 to 2.
Yep.
They don't show up until about 10, maybe 11. They take an hour lunch, sometimes a 2-hour lunch, and then they go home at about 2 or 3 o'clock. And I always say, hey, the same schedule that you had, keep it. We're going to work the same hours. Yep. We're going to put the real estate activities in that time period. You will need to work overtime sometime. There's some days when you're going to have to work longer in the afternoon. You got property to show, you got follow-up calls to make, or you got prospecting you need to do in the afternoon versus in the morning. But you need to keep that schedule. Yep. When you deviate from that schedule and take advantage of all this freedom that this business gives you, yep. then you're toast.
Right.
Because you're, on TV, we all play golf all day, go to wine, socials, and socialize. That's all we do, and we make a lot of money.
Yeah.
The reality is, for somebody who actually does this, we know that we do a tremendous amount of work, and our families know how hard we work because they're working right alongside us. They are at the dinner table, and you might not be there that particular night. They're going somewhere. You may not be there, or you're there. You're in the corner, scrunched up on the telephone because a buyer called you or a seller called you, and they got something that you got to deal with right that second. We all have been through that. We all go through it. We will continue to go through it.
Yeah. So you have been big in becoming involved in the Realtor Association, both at the local level and the state level.
Wait, let's stop this first while you're doing that. Big. I'm going to steal. Just say, Realtor of the Year.
And I bring this up because so many people don't see the value in getting involved in their professional association. And and the last time you were in Columbia, you and I were sitting, talking, and you were talking about just having been to Washington, D.C. and come back, and there were, some interesting information coming about the future participation of people in this professional association. So why have you done it?
So I'm gonna make it simple and expand on it whatever direction you'd like to go. I jokingly say my money and my mouth go together. We pay realtor dues. We pay dues to a realtor association, and my involvement started simply by joining a committee. So I joined a committee, and I found a committee that was about giving back. It was about helping serve. The committee was ROOF, Realtor Housing Opportunity Fund, and it was an endowed fund, or became an endowed fund. And what it did, it funded simple things like habitat bills. It funded simple things like putting a ramp on someone's house who needed assistance. It funded things like roof repairs for someone who couldn't afford to do it. It did those things, and that was important to me, to serve and give back, right? So I did that for a number of years, and faithfully attended meetings. And then out of the blue one day, and I know where I was. I don't remember the day, but I'm in the car. I'm on my way back to my office at the time. I get a phone call from the immediate past president of our local association at the time, Will Riley. So, hey, this Corwyn? Yeah. My name is Will Riley. I am past president of this, association, blah, 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 blah. And in my head, I'm like, why are you calling me? I don't know you at all, right? And he said to me, well, hey, we're taking nominations, open nominations up for our board, for our board of directors, and we'd like for you to apply. Your name has come up several times, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, whoa. Okay. So fast forward, I did apply. I interviewed, got accepted on the board. When I got on the board, when I joined the board, and we're in a different time, but I'm gonna have a very frank, open conversation because I'm always open. I was only only person of color on the board. I was the only black person on the board. Period. That was it. The room was full of a lot of older people, primarily older,
white.
Well, there you go. And it was interesting. We had two boards, MLS and association. I was on the association board. Our association owns our MLS. At the time, there was two other black people, or two black people on the MLS board. At the end of the first year, both of those people were gone. The end of the first year, I chaired our legislative committee as a board member. Second year, I ran for vice president position. I was encouraged to, okay, I did it. Had no idea what I was, I'm just like, I just want to serve. Let's go. Well, that vice president position, because you only held the officer position once, led me to the next vice president, led me to president-elect, led me to president. And in that middle ground in there, for a while, I was the only person of color between both boards. So when we had functions, did things collaboratively, I was the only person. In 1 year, I actually served on both boards and was the only person of color on both boards and served on both boards. The reason why I do it, to get back to and answer the question, is because I believe it matters. When I sat down to interview, they asked me, well, why should we consider you? And I said, I'm here trustfully to represent those people who are our members, who are not here at the table. Because at the time, our association was not diverse. Now, oh gosh, it's so awesome. It reflects better our entire membership. But at the time, to provide that voice, and I'm hopeful that in my continued service, that we're able to do the same thing, to represent all of our members, that we provide insight, that we question when necessary, that we engage and we move forward when it is opportune for us to grow our association, for us to be of value and of service to our members. That's what it's about. Yeah. The association exists primarily, in my opinion, and many agree, for advocacy. It works to make sure that private property rights are protected for the individuals at the local level, the state level, and the national level. You don't want the government coming and just taking your property. That's not right and fair to you. Yeah. And the Realtor Association stands up and champions that. That is why I'm there.
And so, and I'm just going to ask you, because one of the things that's been thrown up to me as a reason not to get involved is that it cuts into your time to do business.
Imagine that.
Or my business will, my business is going to suffer because I'm giving my time over here when I could be just over here working.
Well, I know we don't cuss on this podcast because we bleeped out the other one. But I could, but I'm gonna say bullshit. Yeah. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you why I say that, because the reality is whatever's important to you, you will take care of. Yeah. If working in, supporting, engaging, and being a part of and serving within your association is important to you, you will do it. Right. If your business is important to you, you will do it. If your family is important to you, you will do it. And you can do all. Yeah. People say that because they wouldn't do it. Yeah. And the reality, is it difficult to be here and there? Yes. But I'm going to tell you what every time, my first, it ain't my, because I've had a number of, if you will, breakout years. You get to a level and, you're like, oh, wow. And then you keep going. Eventually you get to a higher level. You're like, oh, shoot.
Yeah. It's funny you're saying that. We had talked to another guy this morning, mm-hmm. and he said you don't realize the breakout, though, until it's happened.
Exactly.
It's not in the moment where you're mm-hmm. like, this is happening. You have so much going on mm-hmm. that when you look back, you're like, that may have been the time when things clicked.
My second breakout year, mm-hmm. and I call it my second one, my second breakout year, I did 40 some odd transactions, and I was president of our Realtor Association in Charleston. I had never, up until that point, I'd never done that many transactions in a year alone. And granted, that's not a team. I had an assistant mm-hmm. who did paperwork, but running appointments, taking a listing, doing all the work that had to be done, I did it. My assistant did paperwork, tracked transactions, all that kind of stuff. But if it was field work, I did it. Did 40 some odd transactions and had to travel around the country, travel around the state, and locally, because I was not only president in Charleston, I was on the board of directors at the state level, served on a committee at the national, and served on committees at the national level.
So, I want to go back because there are one or two things I want to make sure we point out in everything you just said that I think a lot of young people need to go back and reflect on.
Okay.
And one is, there is going to be a time in your life when someone does something to intercede and change your direction. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have that truly changes your trajectory mm-hmm. from where you were headed. Mm-hmm. And you may not know it at the time, mm-hmm. but being open to listen to what they say mm-hmm. and thinking about their advice, mm-hmm. because it's funny you tell that story that way, because I know when I was 15 mm-hmm. and got pulled aside mm-hmm. when things changed my trajectory. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I jokingly say to Will, like, when people, like, if we're somewhere together, and somebody says something to me that, why are you here, or how did you get here, what have you, and if Will is, around or in the room, I'll point at him, I say it's his fault. And, and we get a little laugh out of it, but it, it's the ask, yeah. or it's to pull aside. I mean, I knew nothing of him, he knew nothing of me, so it was really, for him, it was the ask. But when you know the person, it is that, hey, let me pull your coattail for me, come over here for a second, let me talk to you for a second, and you tell or you share something with someone, it makes all the difference in the world. and we pour into people. That's what we do.
Like attracts like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because there are a lot of people that are going to get in your ear.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many investment schemes do you run across where people are trying to sell you something different, something else? And that's the other thing I want to go back and reflect on a little bit is, when you get into this business and and as we work with new agents, our biggest job is to keep them John Wick focused on, what it is, man of focus, just, get over we're not selling $1 million deals in New York or Sunset Boulevard. That is not how the average ordinary real estate agent gets started. It is hard work, and so you need to find someone that you can trust and that is going to pour into you and hopefully teach you how to be coachable and to get over yourself a little bit with some things so that you can go forward and be successful and give back.
That is fair. We do have it, oh gosh, so many times people come into this industry, come into this business after spending months watching HGTV. Oh, I can do that. Yeah, you can do that but come on out here and do it when you ain't being paid for it, because some people on that TV, they're getting paid to be on TV. And you think a real estate transaction moves like that? You think it moves that slowly, that meticulously, of us showing 3 properties and that's it? Sometimes you end up showing 30 if you aren't careful. So exactly. So really, and even still,
we've had one of those.
Yes, exactly.
You look back like, damn, we are stupid for that.
So and you know what's funny? So I started this thing where I used to not really track how many I showed to a person.
Yeah.
Now I started to track it. So when I schedule showings, I'll in the calendar, in the system, I'll make a note and I label the showing. So if I'm going out, first day, then it's that person's name. Next time I go out, it's that person's name with 2, and so forth and so on. And my goal is not to get past 3. You know what I'm saying? Like seriously, because if we go past 3, that means we know what we was looking at the first 2 times. Yeah. So, and that's one of my things. I try not to do that. Because it's kind of a measure, because you want to make sure that you're helping people and not just being all everywhere. Literally the real estate market can be kid in a candy store. Yeah. You got all these options, and the more money you got, the more of them options you can get. Yeah. That's how that thing works. But anyway, I know I'm a little bit off topic, but kind of circling the back around, you're talking about people pulling the coattail. Yeah. That's so important. It's so important that we give and we pour into, and that people understand that our industry is not a one and done. It ain't a quick buck. It is hard work, but it's rewarding work. You ever drive by a house and look up and be like, man, I sold that house right there. And you see the kids playing in the front yard. Yeah. Oh, that thing tear me up every now and again. Like seriously, if I see them on, blow the horn. And I run into some of my buyers. I run into in the grocery store and stuff like that, and when they see me and they recognize me, because some of them hadn't seen me in a little while, and when they recognize me, their face just lights up. Yeah. Oh my God, that is so. That's some good stuff right there. That's some good stuff right there.
Well, and I don't think sometimes. Yeah. Well, we'll finish up with that. So what's next for you, sir?
Well, what's next for me is what's next for us. Yeah. That is growth. We're obviously looking to grow a prominent office in the Columbia market, continue to pace and increase our growth, increase and grow a prominent office here in Charleston as we identify other locales where we want to be. The reality is that Columbia, I believe, and Charleston are going to meet in Orangeburg. So looking at how we can make sure that we have the map covered in that respect, and in other areas, to make sure that we are able to service and help people. There is a lot of people that are being underserved. I know it.
Very much so.
And to have an opportunity to bring service to those who are not just underserved, but to those who desire good service. Yeah. that is where my focus is, where I know our focus is, and we just want to go out there and beat the pavement and help as many people as we can.
Yeah. I'll go back to the guy we were talking to earlier this morning. He really caught my attention. He said, I'm not in to do what I do for the money.
Yeah, he said he wouldn't have made it this far, having 4 locations of different restaurants if he had been in it for the money. Because everything is a new idea. It's kind of capturing that idea.
And people don't get that. We look at people that are making money and think they're doing it for the money, but they're making money because they're doing it for the people. Yeah. And it comes across. And that's one of the challenges for what we do altogether. There's so many times when, again, it is limited belief, limited mindset, and thought process that people bring to our industry. How many times you brought an agent in? And, and I've heard this. I made a list of things. I don't know if I ever told you this or not, but I made a list of things one time for agents not. And I literally labeled it. I put it on the wall. And it said across the top, things not to say to Corwyn.
Yeah.
And on that list were things, legitimate. I literally pulled it down. Like maybe
that list.
I will send you that list. And I add to it when somebody said, because I
walk out the office, you said it going right
there.
Yeah.
So I literally made this thing because my former office we had a larger kind of bullpen, and my desk was back in the corner. So agents would come up to me to my desk, and I had a massive screen, 27-inch screen, and they would come and they stand on the other side of my desk behind my screen, looking over. We looking at each other, and they say something to me, and I'd be like, okay. So when I put that on my list, I put the list on the back of the computer.
Yeah.
So when they walk up to me, they would, automatically look at me, whatever, get ready to talk, and they look and they see the list, and they'd be like, okay, no, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, because it was on my list. Don't say to Corwyn, I don't want to do that. I don't want to work that hard. Yeah. I don't want to, don't say that to me. Because if you say that to me, all the stuff that's on that list is what I do.
Yeah.
So when you tell me, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, but then you come to me and expect to, well, how come you doing so much? Because all that stuff on that list that you telling me you won't do is the stuff that I do.
What were we talking about earlier today? Driven people have to do what?
Yeah.
Find ways to kind of screen out some of the stuff so that, you want to hold people to a higher standard that you hold yourself to, but you can't always do that.
Exactly. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard as a leader.
Yeah.
And not that I framed this, and I don't know if I've ever said this to you out loud, but I framed this some months ago about leadership. Leadership oftentimes is when someone steps forward when others step back.
Yeah.
Whatever situation comes up, you're going to have a group of people that's going to and they step away. But someone who is a leader, not because they desire to be a leader. They never desired to be a leader. They just knew, okay, well, I need to do something. And while they're thinking in their mind, everybody else is going to step forward, they find when they look around that they're the only ones who did. Yeah. That is leadership. Yeah. That is leadership. So what happens oftentimes similarly in what we do, brokers oftentimes, and there's times when they're not, to be fair, but brokers oftentimes are those people. I got into being a broker because I wanted to be able to direct, if you will, a company. It wasn't my own company at the time. What got me into my own company was I wanted to be able to continue to serve and direct the way that I wanted to. I wanted to be able to serve a population that nobody had interest in serving, help people nobody else would figure out or work to help, and be a part and be engaged in it. Now all of a sudden it's popular. Everybody want to do it. Because when I was doing it, home prices were under $100,000. Now those home prices are $300,000. Everybody want to do it. Yeah. But I've been doing it because that was what we set out to do in the very beginning. Yeah. So it's about sometimes blazing a trail, or not necessarily blazing a trail, but just being willing to create one. And others, if they follow, great. Because leaders oftentimes don't look back. Yeah. To know who's behind them. They just know, I'm going to work to create a way to do X, Y, and Z.
But if you work hard enough, the trail will stay there. When I was in high school and college, I worked at Boy Scout camp and was part of the high adventure team, and we'd go out and you tell people to, walk the trail. Don't get off the trail, don't do this. And they're like, well, why? It's like, well, you want to maintain the one that's there, because to start a new one, all you have to do is walk that path 30 days back and forth one time a day. And at the end of that 30 days, there's a new trail. And I think a lot of times inspired leaders will do that walking back and forth. And then when they're finally at the end and people wake up, there's a trail already blazed for them.
That's fair.
I see a lot of that, what you're saying, that you did, and other people are now following you into that space. So,
also I was talking to one of my homeboys actually this morning, and our conversation was about I won't necessarily say secession, but so many times people want to compete. And when everybody want to run, quote unquote, a marathon, or run a 100-meter or what have you, right?
Yep.
The reality is we all as a people, as a group, get further by running a relay. Somebody takes it, somebody paces you, and they take it over from where you leave it, and they continue to blaze a trail forward. We need to work on and focus on creating opportunities for relays. Everybody's running a race. Everybody's competing with one another. When you watch the Olympics or any other sporting event that is track and field, when you're watching those people race, they're all coming off the same mark. They're all trying to run the same course. They're oftentimes getting into each other's way and bumping each other. On occasion, somebody will trip somebody up and you'll have a complete calamity. And we see that all over social media repeatedly. The person, and they falling and getting hurt or injured or just calling this whole pile up. And we do that all the time. But what if we approached it as a relay? See, the reality, and I look at you and I think about this, Joy. The reality is that, generations yet to come, and those younger generations now have the opportunity to pace the older generation. And it's not necessarily about overtaking. It's about passing the baton and it keep going. So you pick up and learn today from what's going on, so that when we're to the point of we're slowing down, you're still getting wind and you're still going. And in turn, later on, somebody else, because there's going to be a day that your seat is here or there, and somebody else is sitting here, that you get the opportunity to do the same thing with. Hey, pace me. Here we go. All right, here you go. All right, go ahead. And I'm going to slow on down. That's a word right
there. Yep, absolutely. Well, I think we have covered a lot of ground this afternoon.
Definitely.
Always a good time, fellas.
And I think one of the goals we wanted to get out of this was to kind of help people, whether they're coming down to EXIT Realty Low Country, to say, hey, I'm interested in real estate down here in Charleston, or they're in Columbia and they want to come to Georgia now and say, hey, what's EXIT Realty New Horizons about? That this will give them a good sense of who we are, what we're trying to do. So thank you for being you, and for your service to our professional association, both locally and at the state level. But just personally, I'll say thank you for joining us, because I don't think we would ultimately be as successful as we intend to be down the road had we not had you come on board with us.
Well, I don't think much of myself, but I thank you for that, David. I appreciate the opportunity to be at the table, and in turn, the opportunity for us to create our own feast, if you will. And yeah, I like that right there. Yeah, but for us to create our own feast. So, I'm committed. I believe in helping and serving people. I believe in real estate being a vehicle that empowers people, and in turn, everything that we're doing supports those two mantras that I'm rooted in. So thank you for doing what you do, George. Thank you, my man, because you're the next generation of what we're doing here.